What you are about to watch is one part of a series recorded by well-respected psychic medium Anthony Grzelka, Australia's Ghost Whisperer. The opinions and views expressed throughout this series are based on Anthony's own personal beliefs. The basis of these beliefs has been developed through the 12,000 plus connections he has made with the spirit world.
Do you know, as a medium, people ask me often about something that I do, and it's pretty much exclusive to what I do. There are very few mediums do what I'm about to discuss, and that's something called soul talking. And some of you here would sort of be wondering, oh, what the heck's soul talking? And as I said, I'm one of the only mediums that practices this. And it actually happened by mistake. A few years ago, I was doing a reading for a lady, and her husband was coming through, and there was lots of great information coming through from her husband. And I gave her all of this information, and it was really running quite well, until at the end of the reading she said, "Anthony, you know, that was a great reading and everything you said made a lot of sense, but my husband's still alive." Well, that's a medium's worst nightmare, because you think, oh my God, what did I do? What's happened? You know? And I couldn't make sense of it. And then she said to me, my husband's still alive, but he's in a Alzheimer's coma. He's in the last stages of Alzheimer's, and he's in a coma. He's in hospital. And then it clicked. I thought, is it possible that I'm communicating with his soul, the part of him that's not affected by any physical type of infirmity, from his hospital bed, and he's given me all this information to her, even though he's not passed yet? So I started to explore that idea, and I started to do more readings with people who are in comas and children who had who were perhaps in a vegetable type state or couldn't communicate. And I started to realise that the soul can actually communicate with us, with a medium, even though the person isn't passed. And I get lots of really, really important information for people who are in that state, that they can't communicate. Indeed, you know, anyone looking at this video and you're a carer for somebody, you would realise perhaps that you have that ability to communicate with someone. And I've noticed that carers who look after people who can't communicate, or nurses who look after people who are in comas and things, actually have almost a sixth sense of what that person needs before they actually need it. And that's pretty much what I do with the soul talking. I have the ability to communicate with the soul, and they can communicate information to me, even though they are still physically here. I've noticed also, though, that it only works in 7 out of every 10 readings that I give in a soul talking reading. If you are too conscious, or if the person has too much consciousness or is too aware of themselves, it's very, very difficult to communicate with the soul, because it's like a natural filter, I think, between the conscious person and their soul. So it only works in 7 out of every 10 cases. I think one of the most interesting cases I ever did was a reading that I gave a family, and it was a soul talking reading. And their little daughter was dying. She was only 10 months old, and she had an incurable illness, and she was going to pass. And I remember this reading so clearly, because this little one, I was doing a soul talking reading, because obviously at 10 months she couldn't speak to her family, and she was quite ill. And I did this reading for this family, for this little girl. And she was able to give me so much information about her life so far, and you know, the things that her parents had been doing, and that she knew she was going to leave this life, and that she didn't want the parents to sort of grieve too much about this, that, you know, all this information. One of the most important things about this little girl, though, is she was talking about how she would make her first birthday. And I remember her saying that very clearly, that she promised her parents that she would be here for her first birthday, and that's all they wanted. She was 10 months old, and they wanted her to make her first birthday, and she did. She passed a week after her first birthday, which was incredibly emotional, but it was a wonderful thing. It was a wonderful gift to be able to give her parents. And to end that story, about 3 years after I did that reading, the family came back for a reading, and I was able to talk to that same little girl that I spoke to in my soul talking reading, and see that she'd made it across to the other side, and she was with her grandparents and other people there. And I was able to bring her through now that she'd made the complete journey to the other side. So it was amazing, an amazing reading that I gave. And it leads me to you know, one last story that I have about soul talking that, again, was just equally as amazing. I was doing a reading in a little country town, and a group of about 200 people in this seminar that I was giving, a public demonstration. And I started to give this young girl a communication from her cousin. And the thing is, the cousin hadn't passed. The cousin was 3,000 miles away in a coma after a road accident. And they'd been in a coma for about 3 months. And I'd started to communicate with her cousin, who was 3,000 miles away in a coma, and bring all this information through about the family and what had been going on, and how he knew people had been visiting him, and all of this amazing information, even though we were 3,000 miles away and he was in a coma on the other side of the country. So, and that happened in front of 200 people. So soul talking is very, 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 very possible, and it's something I'm working really hard to perfect and perhaps teach other people to be able to do that. So if they're caring for people or they have someone that's in a coma, that they can have some sort of a communication with them. I think, just to end this though, I think the most important thing and the most important point that I want to make to people is, just because someone's in a coma, just because your grandmother appears like she can't hear you while she's laying in that coma in her hospital bed, continue talking to them. Keep expressing your love to them. Keep expressing how much they mean to you, because they can hear you. Their soul knows that you are there. And it's very important.
To watch more in this series, or for further information on Anthony, his books, meditation CDs, workshops, ghost tours, or to book a private reading, please visit whispersfrombeyond.com.au.